But Schultzy was talking.
Well, then he interrupted me, so I stopped talking.
That's really fucking rude, dude. Like, what the fuck?
I didn't want him to get rugged with the intro. So let's roll it.
But what? Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the Cosmos from independent validator teams. Hello and welcome to Game of Nodes, the coldest podcast from independent validator teams on the Cosmos on a weekly basis. That was the most shambolic intro I've done. It is very cold here. We were just talking about how both in the northern and the southern hemisphere, apparently it is hoodie weather. And Schultzy was going to say something probably quite interesting, and Noel just kept interrupting him. Schultzy,
profound.
Were you going to say something for public consumption?
Pressure's on.
Yeah, no, it was deeply uninteresting, actually. It's just that the background for the Game of Nodes server is the same background that's used by MEV Space as their big opening logo. This is MEV Space.
I mean, it is stolen from the internet, so entirely possible we steal.
Not so much royalty free as just fully nicked. Is that the deal?
Well, so here's the funny part, though. We've used it longer. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have.
Do MEV Space watch this podcast?
They might.
If MEV Space are watching this podcast, I gather that your nodes are less reliable than Hetzner. So, just that's actually not a really helpful thing to say, is it? Just no kind of product advice or feature request. Just be your product is not as good as the competition.
Just putting that out into the ether and see what comes back out.
Probably not positive vibes, I would expect.
I've had nothing but good experience with MEV Space, honestly. I went, I got a couple servers on 1 month leases a while back, and then I had a great experience. So I did the full 12-month commitment, and it's been nothing but great for me.
Oh, fair enough. So that's why you recognize
MEV Space.
Yeah, MEV Space, yeah.
Fuck, man, I'm 12-month committed on so many servers.
For MEV Space or for other places?
Mainly OVH. I'm their bitch.
Yeah.
OVH. I've just moved some stuff to OVH, and so far pretty happy with their stuff.
Man, they've been fucking rock solid for me. The advanced ones have just been great. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but they can do they could do the SGX until the last upgrade on Secret, and now they're all fucked. So now I've got 7 servers that I can't run fucking.
What are the what's the RAM available on Advanced 1? Because I thought it topped out at 32 or 64.
128 you can get.
Yeah. Starts
really?
at 32.
All right, okay, that's pretty good then. The specs on the, I thought you had to go to the Advanced 2 to get the beefy boy RAM. But for your chains like Juno that are just RAM bastards, RAM hogs. God, the words are going to be strange today. I apologize for that. So what's been happening in the Cosmos this week? I can think of at least one thing.
Tombstone, no way!
We had another Tombstone, and it's from a validator that we've seen Tombstone before. Pulling a bit.
Oh, they've previously Tombstone, have they?
They previously Tombstone, haven't they? Right?
I think it was Evnos maybe that they Tombstoned on.
Okay. I might have to go and fact check myself here, but I'm pretty sure Everstake have already double signed and Tombstoned on different chain, and I'm now gonna have to go and check that because I feel like I might have lied. But yeah, no, I don't want to but there are quite a few people because Everstake are relatively active, I guess, on validated private channels, stuff like that, and on the networks they're on, both in and outside of the Cosmos. I've been DM'd by quite a few validators that I know in various places with essentially messages saying, "Oh, I wish I could reply to this Everstake message with some shady talk." So it's fair to say, I think also it's a little bit of that whole punching up thing because they're such a big validator. If you're if you're a smaller validator like us and you're kind of living in fear constantly. I don't think Noel's living in fear. The rest of us are living in constant fear of double sign. And you kind of see the big boys screw up. You're a little bit like,
I don't fear the double sign, man. I know I'm 1000% safe on double sign.
Well, I feel mostly good. There are a couple of chains that don't work with Horcrux or any sort of remote signing solution like Odin. And anytime I have to do something with like manually copying over keys or whatever, I just...
You get the sweats.
It's stressful. I get the sweats. Yeah, for sure. I'm like...
I found the best way to make sure is you just turn off every node you have for it, destroy it, and then start a new one. And then copy your key across.
That's basically what I do. Like my process is pretty simple. It's just like move the key out, restart the node so that it spawns a new key, and then make sure it's not signing, and then actually move the key over. So then,
I don't know why people have the key, move the key out. I think it's just best to just destroy the user, the whole fucking user folder, the home folder, everything. Just kill it all, and then just fucking start a new one.
That seems dramatic to me.
I don't know. That's kind of basically what we have done in the past when we've shuffled boxes, is that we stop the AWS instance fully, so that it actually gets unallocated in the Amazon scheduler. And if you recycle that box, it will come up on a different IP. So even if you cock up and bring the box back up, your signer can't connect to it because it doesn't know the IP, and the firewall rules, if you're setting it up in such a way that it can only call out to certain IPs, actually need to be cycled before it can then find the correct box. So when we double sign on Uni, when we bring up, so we're going to be bringing up DJ and Horcrux on Uni in the next few days. And when our Uni validator double signs, you can laugh at me for being smug about our process for cycling a remote signer. Or it'll all go totally smooth. And I'll just be like, well, this is why we have the process. It's totally fine. We just switched it out from underneath. There's no big deal. Don't worry about it.
So
I think the instructions I have are from Null, though. So if we do double sign, I'm just going to be like, fucking hell, Null, it was your instructions.
Did you read them? There's plenty of fucking warnings in there about double signing.
I was reading them on my laptop the other day, and we're all like, I was pulling the floor up at the weekend, not important why, but there's very few places in the house you can sit. So I sat on the stairs working, because this is how fucking sad my life is at the moment, is that when I'm at home, I'm literally working on the stairs. And my wife walked past me and just looked over my shoulder at what I was doing and saw your fucking DJ and Horcrux instructions. And it was the first line, something like, "This is Horcrux degeneracy." And then there's a bit of it's like, "We are now into the land where you double fucking sign." No, I'm kidding. You really might fucking double sign. Which is this is the amount of random shit I've obviously talked in the last year. She was like, "Wait, are you risking double signing?" I'm like, no. Maybe. It's just Noel's written.
I hope not.
I fucking hope not, but I don't understand.
The whole document is just one big disclaimer.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah.
A lot of fucking disclaimer in there, but correctly so, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So, completely unrelated. Welcome to Reece Buttercups, man. I just invited him on and didn't say anyone was coming, but so the people who are listening and not looking is just showed up and patiently sat down there for the better part of 10 minutes waiting for us to get around to welcome him.
This is classic Null guest management as well. Welcome, Reece.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we weren't going to have a guest this week, but then we were talking about Joe Chain before we started, and we're like, hey, let's get someone who knows something about that, because I think you guys are doing some, some cool stuff there, and we just want to hear a little bit about it. And you had 20 to 30 minutes free.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess, can you give us the rundown? We kind of understand that it's hoping that you're not enabling IBC if it's just a bit of a joke chain, but also might be doing some interesting things with your gov module that we were talking about. And yeah, man, give us the quick rundown, eh?
Yep. So Joe Chain started out as a joke, and it's kind of morphed into, let's actually run a real chain, real NFTs and things like that. We're building off of Eve chain, which was initially going to be its own separate chain for like pushing it as a canary chain. So its idea was it's going to talk with Juno and be the latest and greatest, and then we'll move those features over into Juno to have those talk together. Well, I decided to push that ahead because of the whole getting Cosmos DPS, whose name is Joe, into 1,000 subs on YouTube. So they began to launch a Stargaze NFT collection of a bunch of random pictures of Joe. And the idea behind it was you get 16 unique Joes, you burn them on Stargaze, and you get the mint proceeds from all of the past mints until that time, until the next people. So that it's a revolving thing. So there was actually a game to it, but you could only mint 10 with your wallet. So we added that game feature. And then someone joked about the fact of we should launch a chain. And I was like, okay, I have the features to do that. I have the resources to do it. So I spent a couple hours. We launched up Joe Chain that night. We did an airdrop of Joe token to all of our NFT holders that had at multiple, I think we did 3 or 4 snapshots. So we gave those to them. And then because we're on the latest and greatest of WASM-D, Token Factory, global fees, and all of these other features on IBC version 5, we decided let's actually launch this and build some products on it. We're on the greatest. We can test it now before we're moving it over to Juno to find any issues that there may be. And we'll talk with Juno. So we're not going to allow transferring of ICS 20 tokens over the IBC, but we are going to have IBC enabled for, say, interchain NFTs or things like that. So Putmos is currently building on it. We have a group of 16 validators, including Chandra Station. We have Putmos, we have Notional and myself, and then Blockpain and a few others. So we have some pretty good people behind it.
So the idea is that it's just like it's like a canary chain that's got like no real value for the actual chain token, but just a place where people can play around in IBC out in NFTs and different stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. It's like a testnet chain, but we're running it on a mainnet. We had ideas initially of maybe we allow a stars to Joe pool, but now we're kind of modifying that to maybe we do a Joe pool with other Joe tokens that we mint, just to see what unique value propositions we can bring to the Cosmos. And like you had said earlier, with a custom governance module, I'm looking at, say, maybe you can only yes and no with veto, but it's a very quick voting period. We're thinking about roughly a day. So there's not enough time. Like you have to really get into it, figure it out. But there's not enough time for the emotions to come out and to play like the other drama that we've seen in other chains. So we're interested in seeing how that works out as well.
It sounds pretty cool, man.
I kind of assumed that was more satire than functionality.
A little bit.
So it was basically launched out of a Spaces, right? Like with the Rack guys mainly, yeah?
I don't believe the Rack guys were in that one. I think that was more with Sephi and Tindermint Timmy and myself and a couple others. I mean, the Spaces grew up pretty big, so there was a lot of people in there. But the Rack guys didn't come in, I don't think, for a couple. We had already launched the chain once the Rack guys decided to come in. So
I always confuse Sephi with the Rack guys. I, for some reason, think that he is Rack guys.
Anyone can be a Rack, but everyone can be a Joe as well.
Yeah,
it's a big tent.
So other than the governance module, are there any like other modules or features that other chains just don't have yet? Like it's pretty at the head, right? It's probably for like a public chain, it's probably got some stuff that aren't present in other chains, yeah. And
yeah,
like especially around like the SDK version, like is it 46 or 47? Or?
Yeah, we're on 46 on that one. We're running WASM-D5 IBC version or WASM-D 29.2. We're running IBC version 5. We're running the newest Token Factory, which is getting moved into Juno. That'll be on V12, I do believe, once we get the integration test done with that. And then we're also running global fees from the Gaia repository, so that we have a set fee that we can raise via governance. So it's running the latest of everything that we could run the latest of.
Have you run into any issues with what did I say? 36? 76?
46.
46. Have you run into issues there? Because I know like a lot of the other chains, it's been a fucking train wreck.
Yeah, one other thing I forgot too. We also have inclusions liquid staking. So we have a native liquid staking, which wraps the standard staking throughout the app.go. And then we're also having Putmos's GovMos for the liquid staking with that. And that'll be $wet Joe because of liquid. So that's the idea there with that. With 46, I've actually been in the Cosmos for about a year now, I think a year this month. And we began building Craft Economy, the Minecraft server that was connecting with the SDK. And so that was on 46. So I've had a lot of struggles with 46, but thankfully that launching Joe on 46 was much simpler than it was back, roughly a year ago. So
Craft Economy dead or
paused for the time being. So because of the legal implications with Microsoft, all of the technical side is done, all of the blockchain integration with the Minecraft server and SDK, but we're currently paused, and developers, I think it was like maybe a month or two ago. So we're just sitting on the project in the time being. The DAO is discussing further steps to go forward, but not really sure on any of that. I'm not in those conversations.
Copy. Well, I guess then we've covered Joe Chain. Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, other features that we're also adding, just to further emphasize that, we're going to continue to build. We'll build a DEX on top of it. So we're looking at WASM swap, but we may just decide to do our own custom version. But again, that'll only be with the Joe token and other tokens that we mint on the chain with the token factory to all coordinate with each other. So we'll gamify that some. We're going to be launching DAO V2 hopefully within the next 1 or 2 weeks. So that way we're on the latest beta of that. We'll have the ICS 721 NFTs like I talked about for cross-chain to talk with OmniFlix or Stargaze and things like that. I'll be launching an NFT marketplace. So I built up an NFT contract. Those will take CW 721s. You'll buy it with your Joe token. So we'll be minting out with that. And then also working with the Raccoon guys on, any custom lotteries or things like that. I'll be talking with them. So there's a lot of cool things coming to it.
And so, but the ultimate goal though is that it's basically a canary chain to test out stuff that's really going to Juno at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yep. All the features that we're bringing are going to be on a Juno eventually. So we just figured let's pull into a meme chain now and allow Juno to talk with Joe very easily, and then go from there and see where the community decides if they want to go with it.
So is Eve officially dead then?
Eve is not dead. However, because we are going to be moving the things into Juno, we're not sure on the use cases with Eve still, because Joe's of course doing what Eve was originally going to do. So, but we're playing Joe in a more meme-centric way, such as a Cerberus coin or something like that. So rather than being an official, like trying to be a blue chip to compete with Juno, so I'm just trying to find the way that we can mix all three together in a useful way to all communities.
Arguably more value than Cerberus.
I don't think you need to argue that. I don't think you need to argue that at all.
Yeah. Kerberos is a shitcoin, so
and Joe is not.
Well, I mean, it has more energy behind it than Curb did, so
yeah, I mean,
time of market, I guess, in the sense it's obviously a bear versus a bull, but I think only Huahua was lucky enough to actually launch lucky or smart enough, to launch during the bull anyway.
Well, they caught the start of the bull, but at least Juno's, at least Chihuahuas, they're sort of moving their chain along. They're still developing and implementing stuff and getting partnerships and that. Whereas Kerberos, I don't think has done anything, right?
Yeah, it's a dead project, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Curb was I think the tipping point for, oh shit, yeah, you can just throw up any old shit as a chain and people will go along with it for a bit, but the novelty's fucking worn off. I think that was the tipping point, wasn't it, really? Every chain since then has had to have a little bit more effort behind it to even I guess not trip over its shoelaces on the starting blocks and then just shit its pants on the floor, which is kind of what
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very tired. The last month has been incredibly trying, and I'm not in a sugarcoating it mood at the moment. But it's yeah. I mean, it really did feel like with that chain, it just sort of it was like one of those memes of the rocket just going bam.
Well, hold on. I think part of the issue with that though was its tokenomics distribution. They did a 1-to-1 send to anyone that had the Chihuahua token. That doesn't make any sense at all. right? Because then they would have no need to buy in, and they would sell immediately. I think that's where they went wrong. I think they could have milked it a little bit longer if they hadn't done that.
Yeah. In fairness, the Huahua tokenomics are pretty fucking batshit, aren't they? So there's also that. I mean, like, I'm always kind of interested to see like a shit chain or like a meme chain launch. Joe's don't shit their pants, says Ben Davis in the chat. That's correct. I'm almost like curious to see like this is the thing about Joe chain. I don't know what I know you don't have a mint module, right? But so that's the only thing I really kind of think I know about the tokenomics. But I'm kind of interested to see how you launch a meme chain in the beginning of like the bottom of a bear market. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it doesn't matter though, because they're not trying to sell it.
Well, no, but I know, but it's just like
to keep it going.
It's like a peak fuck. Like you need the validators at some point to like at least somebody's got to cash out something at some point to pay for something. Like
if I know that it's never going to like be listed, I'll validate it. But I'll only give it one machine. It's not going to have like fucking redundancy and bloody, all the shit. It'll just have like some fucking.
You're just gonna fucking throw up in the
I'm no blog plan. I won't like put effort into it. But
Adam Bomb said in the chat, this is great. Kerberos should be a true pioneer in the Cosmos and officially die.
Yeah,
fall on the vote to kill it. Yeah,
Harry on the sword.
Well, there was the like before the bear even fully took hold. There was the drag Kerberos back to hell prop.
Yeah, that was great.
Was that was that Angry Mouse?
I thought Angry Mouse was the like give me money guy.
I thought it was Pikachu that did that.
I was thinking it was Golden Ratio.
Wow.
That's a big spread of different users, like from Angry Mouse to Poker to Golden. They're like,
well, it seems like the kind of bullshit prop that Angry Mouse would put up. So,
yeah,
but also it makes a lot of sense. So maybe not Angry Mouse. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like it might make too much sense. Was that unnecessary shade? Possibly. I don't have
so Reece
Angry Mouse.
So Joe will never be. It'll never be saleable anywhere else other than on Joe chain, right? It'll never have economic value.
Yeah, we don't think so. That was our original plan, was to maybe mix it with stars and have a stars to Joe pool just so we can have more liquidity come in. But as we thought about it, we're going to be airdropping to a bunch of NFT communities anyway, both in Joe token as well as custom Joe mints that we do on the Joe chain. So, we're still trying to figure out, can we monetize it? Likely not, but I think that just the value it provides from a technical standpoint will outweigh that. And so if you come at it from a testnet perspective of we're running this testnet, just as you would say Uni5, it's, it's that same aspect, but we're giving it the mainnet vibes. So that's kind of how we're situating it in its current stance.
So if it's never going to be monetized, I'd like donate compute to it.
So we have a group of, the way that it works is there's only 16 validators. So we're writing UI tooling for delegations to actually spread it out across all 16 evenly to try to keep all the same. Now, also on top of this, all validators have to have the same name, the same identity, all of this. So delegators don't know who they're delegating to. They're delegating to Joe. So we're trying to see, can we keep all validators in the set at the even weighting to have the best instance? Because it doesn't matter if you're at the bottom of the set because you're evenly weighted against everyone. So we're trying to see, how do delegators, deal with this situation.
But do you have 16?
Do we what?
Do you have 16 now?
Yeah, if you go to explorer.just.joe.app, you can see our validators currently. Some of them have not changed the name yet, but yes, we have the front end UI, and we're working on the liquid staking and normal staking to automatically distribute now. So couple of them are working on that. Hopefully have it out in the next couple of days.
Joe.
We will be halting today at block 50,000 for the holidays. So that's something that Joe wanted. So we'll be halting for holidays just as banks would.
Just
wow,
like
that's outstanding.
That's fucking good, actually. I love that.
It's Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, I believe tomorrow. So we're halting tomorrow until Friday.
Oh yeah. So is that like
that is actually quite exceptional?
No, validators were just halting at that height. So no No proposal. We're just doing it. We have the control. We're just Joe.
Cool.
That's great.
Yep. So in about 3,000 blocks we'll be down.
Maybe we
truly
should,
a pioneer. Truly.
maybe we should.
Just like halt every weekend. That would be pretty funny.
Yeah,
actually.
before you know it, we'll be on mainframes and batching transactions every night instead. So
we should propose that across the entire Cosmos. Just
take weekends off.
holidays.
yeah.
Only validate business hours.
In another ecosystem that we're working on, there literally is a thing where they take a break for the holidays.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, other than
The one that ends in S?
other than critical updates like bug updates, they won't release patches or updates during holidays.
This is the one that ends in S, right? Like, we should agree to do that everywhere, including over weekends.
End in S, but yes.
Well, the one that I'm thinking of that ends in S. And
Yeah, probably.
We're connected. We have ESP, so you should know what I'm thinking of.
I think I've got it. Is it kangaroos? No, it's wallabies. I always get that one mixed up because I see the hopping animal. I'm like kangaroo, but no, it's smaller. It's a rock wallaby. I'm right, aren't I?
I don't know, man.
Is there a difference between a rock wallaby and a normal wallaby?
Yeah, it's a wallaby on a rock.
For those that don't know, like the Frey and I talk every day, like morning and night. So we're like incredibly connected internally now. I'm pretty much his wife.
I think I probably send you about one message a day with the word fucking at the very least. It's like if I see some dumb shit, oh dear. That's probably why there's so much swearing on the podcast, because it's just like a week's worth of DMs and it's just all of the stuff where we're just like, hey, remember that fucking thing I sent you about that fucking thing? And it's just like, it's what happens when Australians and British people write.
What we should do is just write our DMs into the agenda for the Node podcast and not actually talk about them. We should just put it straight into the spreadsheet, the DM.
Yeah, but then it would just be like bleak pessimism from my end, and then just like, oh, it'll be fine. You know, you'll be all right. Don't worry about it. It goes how it goes. Whatever. Like, it would just be like sort of 20% would just be null : how you going, and then just like an assortment of just phrase random statements with the word fuck in. And then just like 25% negativity, we're up to 75%, right? And then 25% null positivity. That would be it. That would be the whole lot. Yeah, if we had Schultz's, it would only take about 5% of like 100% because Schultz is relatively quiet and usually only says very useful and specific technical things. Like there's a whole thread, I think, with Schultz in another, I can't remember which one it is, but one of the many threads that we're in. And literally, I think if I counted up all of there was like a specific point where I scrolled up and I couldn't see a single message from Schultzy except for like I don't know, like maybe 2 weeks before there was like a point where there was just like a snippet with loads of useful stuff for like a bash script. And I was just like, yeah, Schultzy really doesn't talk unless he's got something to say, huh? And it's usually something useful, unlike the rest of us.
I don't know what to say for myself. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, well, that's how you get through a bear, isn't it? So anyway, hey, I've got like a fun, like, we should start. I need to make a little new video. We've got the tombstone video, right? Do we reckon any? We were talking about this earlier, I think, weren't we? Whether we thought any chains would actually stop making blocks in the bear now that the bear has gotten bad. Like, we should start doing a bet on this to see who's NGMI. Because it's like obviously like a super big meme, right? NGMI, but like currently no chains have NMI'd.
Well, so I mean, I guess
So
the question
far, right?
is, would they ever just stop unless all the validators deliberately stopped, right? Because if they jail themselves, then the chain just keeps going on. If they unbond, the chain just keeps going on. Every validator would have to actively turn their thing off, right? Isn't that the only way to stop it?
Oh, I guess you go below.
Because if
You
you're
have to
jailed,
if
you're jailed, isn't your stake taken out of the total?
I think you'd have to have. It depends. If the validators go down without unbonding, then they could halt the chain.
So I guess it depends then.
What the validators do.
And how many go down simultaneously? Because if you have 18 hours of them going down, if they go down, nice. I like the background. Yeah, it requires a bunch of validators turning off at the same time.
Yeah, I mean that's the notion, isn't it? It would be interesting because I guess in theory, if there's enough stake, you can run Tendermint on a single node. So
it doesn't.
You could have one lone validator just chipping away in the darkness.
If people unbond instead of just turn off, right? So if people turn off, the chain will stop. But if people unbond, it'll just keep fucking banging up the people below. Even if it's got 10 validators with one stake each, it'll still run. As long as they unbond. If they just turn off, it's fucked. It'll stop.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Like you build a super resilient fault tolerant system. It's actually interesting to extrapolate just how fault tolerant it is in terms of just how hard it is to kill the thing deliberately as well as accidentally. It's an interesting thought. I got in the chat, Adam Bomb said, Game of Nodes bear market bets, first chain to die, Sif or Curb.
Sif.
I've seen a lot of people unbonding from Sif recently. So
well, I just can't imagine why that would be.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Sif has actual utility potentially, and Curb doesn't. And yet, I've seen more people unbonding from Sif than from Curb.
I mean, I think Zerb is so far outside of like the normal Cosmos lexicon at this point that people don't even care enough to unbond. Like, it's pretty sad, but I think that's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, to be fair, there's quite a few chains like that. Like, when was the last time you heard about Starname? Checked, Commercio.
Whoa. Let's not throw Checked into this. I actually like Checked. I think they have a great product.
I think Check's quite good, but I don't hear people talk about it ever.
No, that's true. It never kind of went into the greater lexicon of the Cosmos, though. I don't really know why. Maybe because it's not in MintScan. It seems like if a network is not on MintScan, then people don't take it seriously, right?
Well, everybody got very excited about Territory, and they're not on MintScan, right?
Ooh, are they? I don't know.
Thanks for coming, Reece.
Didn't think so. Yeah, I just noticed Reece said, I gotta go. And then I didn't check the DMs until he had gone. Thanks, Reece, for joining us to talk about Joe Chain.
Territory is on MintScan.
Here's some.
Which one is on MintScan? Sorry.
Territory is on MintScan.
Is it? That's interesting.
Yes,
so Leighton666 in the chat says dig. Adam Bomb suggests Desmos.
Yeah, they haven't done anything, right? There's been quite a few of us leave dig as well recently, so it's like on its way out. But it still might. Some people just want to validate, and don't care about the cost.
And Ben Davis has said, Reece rugged you guys.
Yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to work. We're supposed to kick them out.
I think this might be a first. A guest has just said, I gotta go, and has gone quietly and just rugged us. I mean,
like, to be fair, he did say he only had like 20 minutes or so, but we kind of just ignored him as well, which kind of didn't help. So we're like, oh, thanks for that, and then just started talking about other shit.
Yeah.
Game of Nodes is like this. There's like you've got to just elbow your way into the chat.
It's like a big conversation at the pub. You got to fucking like just muscle your way in so you can say your piece and then like go back to your schooner.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really bad, right? Sometimes when it's got like Schultzy and Eric on and Usurper on doxed. The 1 week he's not on doxed him. But when they're on and they're obviously like quite tired or in like a bit of a quieter mood, and then there's just like full pub mode going on this on this side of the screen, we're just like, oh fucking hell, mate, what did you see this? And I'm just like, oh man, I feel so bad. This is literally just being like in a bawdy pub and just being like, pints.
I don't feel bad at all.
Well, but you're Australian, so
yeah,
that's how it works.
So here's some networks on. So this is on Kepler, right? So
are you just looking down the list on Kepler?
Yeah, well, there's some question marks on Kepler now. So, like, star names there, Sif chains there, Certic's there. Certic done anything?
What's Certic?
Wait, Sif Sif's an official. Oh wow, it is. I didn't realize it was actually okay. All right, continues.
IrisNet, Persistence, Sentinel, IXO.
It's IXO. I thought IXO was the same thing as star name.
Yumi. There's quite a you don't hear much. Well, I don't hear much from any of those networks I just mentioned. Does Yumi do anything?
Is Keychain on
No.
on Kepler?
No, it's just the self-suggested chain type thing.
Are they on MintScan? Maybe.
I think
they are.
Unless it's been paid for by the chain, I think that Kepler should modify their officially supported chains based on some sort of volume, like IBC volume or something, or economic value, so that they sort of have the good ones listed instead of just some.
I mean, I think the whole Kepler value add, I think, is really interesting. It feels like I'm probably walking over people a little bit here with this. It feels like they developed it and then just kind of backed out. They don't accept PRs for their code. I've tried a couple improvements and they didn't take it. But there's a lot of things they could have done. Like they could have built in swaps in Kepler, right? They could have just used osmosis and taken some of the fees or something. And it seems really strange to me that
they can actively improve it. It's not dead. Everyone fucking uses it. They can make it so much better.
Yeah. But at this point, okay, maybe unpopular opinion, but I feel like Kepler is just a way of guarding an incumbent advantage and getting a little bit of extra pocket money on the side. Because the team behind it, right? It's the team behind Osmosis, right? So they don't need the cash. They cover more than their RPC cost by a big margin by charging 300K a year or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I don't think they there's no way Star Name's coming up with 300 grand a year.
So I think what it was is the original 10 chains, Kepler just added to set themselves up as the wallet, right? So these top 10, I think, are the top 10, the first 10 chains, right? And so at that point, they didn't really know what was up, down, left, or right. And then as new chains were added on, they kind of, I don't know if there's some payment system going on for all of them. Sommelier and Axelar were both just brought in. T-Grade, I think, goes as well without any sort of governance thing saying to pay them in. Stride too. Those all
so T-Grades can just get in because they basically built WASM and they're okay.
Well, sure, but my point stands though, right? There's more of a backdoor deal of friends adding it in versus for Juno, for example, there's an entire governance system of, hey, this is how much you need to actually pay to get in. I think there was a couple of those, but I can't think of them offhand. So
I think Stargaze pay them. Juno pays them. Be interesting to see what happens on the next time, after the year's up from the last payment, because to pay them 370 grand again will just about be everything that fucking Juno's community pool worth.
That's the whole community pool at this point. Well, I mean, I think this is a broader question in the bear market, is that the money is rapidly evaporating, and it will be interesting to see what happens when these things shuffle back around. Especially for, I mean, there's a lot of initiatives I think that are now moot, for want of a better term, with the
Well, I
current
mean,
conditions.
we're at a point now where in Juno, like, I can't see us being able to sustain any kind of like rewards or developer program just because it'll annihilate the fucking the liquidity. It's basically at that point it's just dumping the dev fund on users. So
yeah, I mean, pretty much all spending for any chain that doesn't have a diversified treasury that's either other tokens or stables, or I mean, because this is the great problem, right, of Juno, is that when Juno was $40 a coin,
Juno could have put 50 million in their treasury easily.
Yeah,
and
well, so the point is, if Juno was run by a company, like, or if it had a foundation,
if it was run by Null,
or well, no, if it was run by you or me. When Juno was $30,
if it was run by you, it'd still be broke. If it was run like me, it'd have a future. Well, you only do what I do anyway, so it's like
we. So right, I will publicly give you one piece of credit. So I think I'm more paranoid on diversifying risk than you are, although I do value your opinion now. But I will give you the credit that at least once I asked you a question about our company finances, where I was just like, say, and you did literally point out something really obvious and made us over $10,000. So I will credit where credit's due. On occasion, you have contributed to our continuing ability to continue functioning as a business.
Should I not have received a commission?
Let's talk about this later. But anyway, so there's no finder's fee for keeping us in business. That's not how we'll talk about this later. But the point is, that when Juno was that high, right? A lot of other foundations, a lot of other organizations would have got stables, would have done other things. And it's not really a slight on Juno necessarily, in the sense of like, the setup of the organization is basically non-existent. And so was that an option? It probably would have had to go through governance. I mean, it could have done. There are ways of doing that.
So another thing is, like,
so it's so the most point crying over spilt milk, I guess, is my point. Even
like chains with a central organization are in the same position, because when you're in a bull market and you haven't been operating that long, and everything's going fucking good.
Static desk, like it's like, are we supposed to not even talk about that?
You don't anticipate.
It's just a sit-stand desk. What do you want from me?
So do you know, I actually tried to put my desk up during another podcast, like this podcast, but like many, many weeks ago, and it started to tear all the fucking cables out of the wall. And I was like, nope.
Did you like press up and then press back down?
Yeah, I did. I like got halfway up and then I had to go all the way back down. Everyone's like,
I mean, Schultz is like pure minimalist, so it doesn't surprise me that desk smoothly goes up and down. There's no thing, of course.
Well, I did actually just get a new dock for my laptop, so everything goes into one cable now, and it's amazing. It's like down to, from every single port was used down to a single Thunderbolt 4 port. That is just the best.
That's actually quite cool.
Yeah, nice. That's how I run all my. So actually, I'm almost all MacBook now. I've been running a MacBook and a Windows PC for the better part of a year now, and actually probably more like 9 months. And so now I'm almost entirely MacBook on the one plug. So I've got a couple of stations around the place. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm not entirely in the one place all the time. So I've got a couple of like monitor keyboard setups around the place that I can just whack that USB-C in. And the other day I found out that I can just jam my iPad into it as well, which was like very nice, because the I don't know if you guys do any spaces, but spaces fucking sucks. And it only works.
We were supposed to do one for Howl the other day. We were like the guest and couldn't fucking connect to it. Doesn't work on iPad
Doesn't
Air.
work on PC at all.
Doesn't work on iPad Air. Doesn't work on Windows. Doesn't work on Mac. Doesn't work on Linux. tried to join it on Android, and it didn't recognize an external headset. It was like, this external headset's not compatible. It's like, what the fuck do you want? Like, literally, I've tried 4 devices at this point. Like, it's just non-functional.
Right. I plugged my fucking phone into my Scarlett, and it works beautifully.
You know what? Didn't fucking think of that, did I? I could have got an extender to. I could have got an extender to USB-C. But your Scarlett's more recent than mine. Mine is 14 years old, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think the drivers will install over USB-C to an Android phone.
I have only just recently discovered not abusing my ears with trash noise.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. That's cool. I mean, no, to be fair, I only got the monitors. I only got like really good monitors about 5 years ago. So before that, it was just an interface without any monitors. It was only, I bought a nice desk, and then I was just like, hey, I could be one of those fucking dickheads that has 2 isolated speaker stands with, you know, the isolation foam on them, and then puts 2 fancy fucking speakers on top, and then just has them. And I was like, yeah, I can be that fucking guy. So I bought the most expensive speakers I could afford secondhand. So, because I was like, I could buy them new, but then I could buy ones twice as good if I buy them secondhand.
Garnsey has a good. I've never seen Garnsey here before, but Garnsey has a good selection. Use an emulator for spaces, an iPhone emulator, of course.
That's smart. That's smart.
Oh, that's clever. Do you know what? I even have that on this fucking laptop from a previous job. Why didn't I think of that?
What a fucking gigabrain. Shit, man.
Now I feel like a fucking brat because I've literally got the iOS emulator on this laptop.
I feel like a total twat now. Why didn't I think of that?
Fuck. Okay, well, there you go. Space is fucking solved. So
it won't work though. You'll go to do it, and it just won't work. It will just black on you.
Yeah, I mean, the emulator is only so good as well. Like, I remember spending a fucking week trying to debug why something wasn't working with the keyboard in the right way on an iOS app in the emulator before, because I was away for work, and I got tasked this thing, and then I got back to the office where we had all the different devices, and I was like, I'm just going to sense check. And it was fucking there was no bug on the actual device. It's just that all of us had checked it on the emulator and assumed that we were like, oh fuck, it's a real bug. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a bug on the actual iOS device, only on the emulator.
I had that
exact week. It took a week. Have you any idea how frustrating it is to debug a keyboard action, like in a keyboard event on an iOS device for a week?
So completely unrelated. I bought an iPhone yesterday. I'm an iPhone guy now. I've been Android for like 15 years.
Why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, why?
So I've got a MacBook and an iPad, and I felt like I was missing out some connectivity with the phone. I feel like I'm going to regret it.
It's very old. Like that's my impression. But then you can do a really cool thing where I noticed that when I'm on my home Wi-Fi, if I brought the work laptop back from the office, sometimes I just like have it open, especially at the moment if I'm working on the fucking stairs. I'll just have it open, and then I'll be at my desk, and the Mac on the desk will be like, hey, do you want to just import the fucking Firefox window you have open? And you're like, what? I don't have a Firefox. And then it's like, oh, because there's a laptop downstairs on, and it just knows. Just on, it 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 just. That's great. I'll sample that for my next mixtape. So anyway, but away from iOS devices, Sporty asked a question a little while ago. What's Kingnodes' opinion on closed source CosmWasm contracts? Because this is if we're going to do drama of the week, right?
I forgot about that drama.
I blocked that drama out.
Is this why you unbonded on Dig?
Fuck Sporty. What, man? Don't be bringing that shit up.
Yeah, now we're all going to get in trouble.
we can talk about this in an adult and undramatic way, but the drama actually was not a it's not the drama per second numbers. Thank you, Gasney. So the drama was actually over the whole chain's code, right? Rather than just that's not true, because it was about
no, it's just the stable coin
yeah,
code.
it was about Kuji, wasn't it? And Kuji's chain code's actually open source, isn't it? It's just the smart contracts that are closed source, right?
Yeah, that's so. I'm pretty sure that's it. It's just that USK is closed source, and Jacob took issue with that.
Well, I think it's more than just USK. I think also their order book is also closed source, but the point stands.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, this is to me, it's a choice that users need to make, right? I've always said that chains don't necessarily need to be, like, we're talking about app chains, man. They don't have to be decentralized. They don't have to be open source code. They don't have to be any of the shit that Bitcoin is, right? So when you buy into a project, there are so many fucking projects and companies in the world that are closed source, right? Just because there's like this stigma that like blockchain should be this pure thing to do around the original white paper of Bitcoin, I think is bullshit. Like, things evolve, industries evolve, and you're buying into a project and the developers, right? You have to have a certain amount of trust if you're going to buy into a closed source project. And that's it. If they're undoxed developers that don't have much history and not much credibility, then you'd stay right away from it. And if if they've developed a certain amount of trust, then you might give them some trust and use their product. But how do you vote on anything, right? You vote with your wallet. If you think it's bullshit, don't use it. If you think it's good, use it. So,
well, like, if you give your credit card to any cloud service, right, as a company, you can get an out-of-band bill and get a shitload of money charged to you. That literally happened to us last month, right? And you go, fuck, that's annoying. But you've got a commercial agreement in place with them, and you have to pay it. So, and like a really good, like, and I use the cloud example, like, Grafana or any of these services that you pay per usage. It's like a meme with AWS, isn't it? That some guys got charged $1 million because they had a hot partition in DynamoDB, right? And obviously AWS did not make them pay $1 million because it didn't cost AWS $1 million to provide that compute. They just went, oh, we'll consider this a billing mistake. We'll write it off as like a couple of $1,000s, I think, which was the actual usage, right? But it just goes to show you that there are a lot of times in life when billing is completely opaque and pricing is completely opaque. And in a former life, doing cloud consultancy, doing digital transformation, that sort of stuff, you're convincing people to, in some cases, drop physical data centers owned by their company, like where they own everything. They own the servers, the building, the power. And you're going, okay, well, you no longer have to maintain backup generators and blah, 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 and like knock a hole through a wall when you need a better bandwidth connection put through, right? But in exchange, you don't go, oh, well, the building costs this to rent, the servers cost this to buy, the staff cost this to hire. You instead go, well, we're going to spend some money, right? So there's some trust there, as well as an additional layer of risk, right? And the layer of risk is that you could get the maths wrong about the billing, and thus you're actually exposed to a lot more risk than you think you are. And that's the same with any project where you're handing over your credit card. And a lot of the crypto stuff, you're handing over your wallet, essentially, or you're signing a transaction. So you are handing over your wallet, you're handing over your card, just like in a merchant. Back in the days when somebody would just skim your card under the counter, you ever have that where you went for a beer with your mates and you bought a round of beers, and then like we're talking like 10, 15 years ago. And then a couple of days later, you'd be like, what the fuck? I got charged for 4 rounds. And you're like, it's because somebody skimmed your card and then just ran a bunch of extra stuff through the till, right? And that sort of stuff's really uncommon now, like in the outside world, I guess, right?
Well, hold on. Let's caveat that a little bit. That is super common in the States still. Super common. But continue.
Oh yeah, but you guys don't have chip and pin anymore. Do you have chip and pin?
We do, yeah. But
Because that's what stopped it over here.
there's no pin involved with it though. It's just chip. There's no pin.
Oh right.
I have never been skimmed and never heard of anyone being skimmed in Australia.
Okay.
I've been skimmed like 6 times in the last like 2 years. So, and I know
before chip and pin came along, I got I know people that didn't got, but like only for small amounts of money anyway. Because
your point stands. It wasn't worth interrupting you for, but yeah.
but anyway, I guess the point is that like there are plenty of services that you hand over your billing details to, like you have service from OVH, right? There will be things in their terms of service, I guarantee, that they're allowed to charge you for, and they can like discretionary charge you in certain situations. Almost every terms of service has stuff like that with outbound charges, and we just assume that we have a good relationship with this service provider and it will be fine, right? And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things like that in life that require trust, right? And I think that's the interesting thing about the whole. I've just finished, the Cosmos book club, the Graeber thing, right? And there's an argument in that book, central to that book, on debt, that money, there's no such thing. So debt comes before money, and money doesn't ever come without trust, right? So, well, more specifically, money tends to evolve when there is no trust, but it's never completely devoid of trust, because you have to trust that the money generally can be redeemable for something, even though that's just the base value, right? But it's the reason the money is used as a passable token is because you don't trust you don't trust your counterparty, right? And so like the presence of tokens on a blockchain or whatever suggests a low trust environment, but it doesn't, the need to then replace that low trust environment with trust in the code, maybe theater, I think.
Well, I think part of the issue also for me with open source versus closed source at the moment is that one of the reasons why open source is considered, it's held as the next best thing, or has been for the last 40 years, is the idea that someone's going to constantly be auditing it for fixes. Someone that's white hat auditing it for fixes, right? And a lot of the hacks that we've seen have been for open source code, but it was a black hat hacker that actually found the exploit, right? We only have a handful of people that do any level of auditing of external code in the Cosmos. We have Blockpain, who comes in sometimes, and I know he does on a contract basis as well as just kind of something he does. Jacob sometimes does, and Chill Validation. Those are the only 3 that I'm aware of that ever go through and review code. And generally it's on a, I don't want to say selfish basis, but if they're going to use something, they're going to audit it to make sure that they're not doing something dumb. They're doing due diligence, you could say. Most people aren't doing that. Even if Kuji open sourced their code, I doubt that many people would be auditing it. So I don't fault them. Go ahead.
Just on that as well, Schultzy, like anyone who actually listens to this podcast at some point, please consider delegating some to Chili and Blockpain, because they are out there doing the good things. It's just that they don't run around marketing. So they're really good.
Chili does a lot of looking at low level code and working out what's going on. And I think that, again, it's not. Yeah,
they're both really good validators, and they're both really good security guys who do a lot looking around the ecosystem. So, if you got some rewards that you're looking for someone to, compound them with, just consider those 2 guys. I don't think I ever seen them, be jailed or anything like that. So I don't think you have to fear that kind of stuff.
So we've had some questions in the chat, which I'd like to just pull out a second. So Don Chineko has said, and I'm sorry if I just murdered your surname there. Would you guys mind to invite somebody from Kujira on the podcast? They can tell you more about closed source contracts. We have a standing invitation to Code Hands to come on, but we have been rugged in the past.
So I just sent Code Hands a message just then in response to Don's question. So
maybe it will happen. We all individually, I think, have talked to Hans at one point or another, and big fan, nice guy. We'd love to have him on to talk about Kujira.
So it is late in the
and also-
afternoon, like late at night for him, this podcast time. So we may not be able to get him on.
I thought Hans was in a similar time zone to me.
Maybe
It's
you
pretty
guys
late for you though. Like my normal bedtime is like
it is
9
late.
p.m.
What?
Yeah, my normal bedtime is like 9 p.m. After that point, I mostly just sign off on things. So
Yeah, I'm 8 or 9, but I get up at like 4. So
I get up around
What the fuck? If I go to bed at like 11, I can get up at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And if I go to bed at 1:30, I can get up at 7:30, maybe 8.
Well, I mean, going to bed doesn't necessarily mean going to sleep, right? Like I got reading I want to do, but I try to be like keyboard down, isolated by that point.
Fair. I'm kind of like play XCOM to like can barely keep my eyes open and then go immediately to sleep.
Oh, you better believe that I'll play video games while I'm in bed. That totally counts as like me being in bed.
That doesn't count as being in bed. You can't have a console in your place of rest. That's ridiculous.
But I don't. See, what I have is my phone, and then I have a controller that I can attach to the phone, kind of like a Switch.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have your phone in the bedroom. That's like
I
super
know.
bad. That's
I
super
know.
bad.
I know. It's shameful and embarrassing, but it's how
Well,
it
you need
goes.
to phone goes by ground coffee, and then when it goes off in the morning, you have to walk to next to where the coffee is to turn the phone off, and then you smell the coffee, and you're like, I guess I should get up.
So okay, so here's what I used to do to get up. It used to be that I had this app that I would need to do math problems in order to actually turn the alarm off. But
That's devastating.
it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I like doing math in my head, so it was just a lot of fun. And you can like snooze the sound. But the problem is my wife would have different hours than me, and so I'd be like 6 a.m. rolls around or whatever, and I'm starting to do math problems on my phone. And she wasn't a fan of that. So now it's mostly just
that is fucked.
It would probably be fine for me because I'm the night person rather than the morning person. So if I do shit like that to get myself up, I'll literally be like fucking turning my alarm off and being like, right, fine, I should probably make some coffee then. And like she's already like fucking writing or doing something clever or something. I'm just like, oh, fucking morning people. Like, and like loads of my friends are morning people as well. So when I like stay with them, I'll like pull my reheated corpse out of bed at like 8 and just like stumble downstairs and be like, oh, thanks for putting me up. And they're like all ready to go to work. And they're like, oh, cool, you're up. Do you mind like just getting the fuck out of my house, please? And you're like, oh yeah, cool. Thanks. So you've got to go to work, haven't you?
right.
I don't need assistance to wake up in the morning. I just wake up. It's fucking like rides. And
Well done. Big round of applause.
So
He
can
just
we get
wakes up
back to
everybody.
the fucking comments? You guys
Yeah. Okay. Back to the comments. Right.
Sorry, back to the comments. So partial so yeah, this is a good point that Ben Davis makes. He says, I think that the closed element should be clear on the website. Transparency is important. Partial Match says the concern, as far as I know, is that USK will get big in the wider Cosmos, and any risk will be spread around as with the UST. That I think is a fair concern, right? Because some people did spot the fundamental flaw in UST because of looking at the code rather than looking at how it was described, right?
The funny thing with UST is that I asked fucking heaps of people and no one could really tell me how it worked. I'm like, how about this UST? And they're like, yeah, man, it's really going off. I'm like, yeah, but how does it work?
Well, so, and this is the other thing about auditing, right? I've written a lot of smart contract stuff, particularly around NFTs. I think nominally I might still even be a maintainer on the Cosmos NFTs repo, right? So I've been working with that stuff for a long time and was designing something today that works with NFTs as part of a project that's ongoing. And I was trying to work out the implications of something that's in the Cosmwasm NFT standard. And I actually had to send a message to friend of the podcast, Jake from the RHINO core team, and be like, hey, dude, what the fuck's up with this thing? Like, I feel like I'm missing something really obvious. And he pointed out, he was like, oh, no, it's just for this use case. Duh. And I was like, right. Yes, you're right. Of course it is. And therefore XYZ. I was like, okay, I think actually the design's fine. I'm being paranoid about nothing. But like, that whole process, like to step through the implications of a thing that I know very well, but like had forgotten some element of, and then needed to be like sense check it and all that kind of stuff. You go like that, especially in the context of auditing, you're like, yeah, I'm not sure that even, I mean, I don't know how many lines of smart contracts I've written at this point, 10K, 20K, maybe more, written tutorials, done workshops, talked to people in real life, talked to people on things, whatever. Me and Callum did that series. And yet, am I confident to sign off on a smart contract? No.
Yeah, I mean, I would back you there. I did an audit for the Pontum wallet, I don't know, a month ago maybe. Not a public one, just it's a closed source wallet on Aptos, and I just want to make sure that if I want to use it, that it wasn't doing anything ridiculous like what happened on Solana 6 months back or whatever. And it can't be overstated how important modularity within code is to be audited. It's whenever you do an audit, you really want to break things up into individual components. And if the app or whatever it is you're auditing isn't well broken up, it's borderline impossible, just because it requires so much in-depth knowledge. Pontum, fortunately, was really well broken up, so it was pretty easy to just go in, look how they're doing encryption, look how they're sending out different transactions and stuff. That was fine, but auditing is it's a crazy skill. Doing code reviews in general is a really undervalued skill, in my opinion, or underappreciated. To I think it was Don. I think Don said there's a niche for work in Cosmos code auditing. Yes, absolutely. That's what Certic does, and that's what someone audited code recently for Cosmos. They said at the beginning that they weren't they aren't custom to Cosmos, and then there was an exploit that happened soon after. Because it's hard, and you need a specific specialization. And if you're a code auditing company and you specialize in the Cosmos, well, suddenly now you're kind of bound to the Cosmos in a really kind of scary way. Cosmos is bound to itself. If Atom goes down, everything else goes down. So as a business decision, it can be quite scary.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on with that. But like, I remember when like the Prop 16 smart contract, we did a lot of the work on that, and I remember I almost every line of that contract is quite a trivial contract, but almost every line of that contract has a code comment on it, because that was the only thing I could think of that would mean that somebody, like way more than I would ever write on anything else, just I wanted like more or less everything to be exhaustively documented. So like if it says like fucking config.save, there would be a comment above it going like, here we are going to save the configuration. The configuration was passed in when the contract was instantiated, or something like that. Because otherwise, like if you're in a hurry and you don't have the context of writing it, like that understand, or like that piecing together, like I don't know about you guys, but like I definitely find that I either understand it completely or I don't understand it at all. And I think that's why, and I've said this a lot, I think, about the Cosmos SDK, that like I've been working with it now for nearly 18 months and I still probably understand it less than any major piece of software that I've worked with for that length of time, right? And I don't think it's just me, because I've worked with a lot of software over the years, but like I think it's part of this character of like the way my brain is maybe broken, is that I can either understand the thing completely or not at all. And when you look at auditing something, you're like, okay, well, if somebody else has to audit this, maybe they'll just straight away just like see how all these pieces fit together and then happy days. Or maybe they're like me and they're going like, fuck, okay, I see that this looks like a normal contract with lots of very normal bits, but I need to understand how all of these pieces fit together into a greater whole. And like 9 times out of 10, the quickest way to get to that point is by talking to another person. And if that person's not there, then they have to have a conversation with you somehow. And that's like code comments. And it's so hard like, I think anybody who's done any, like, especially maybe last year before a lot of the documentation was written, anybody who's done a lot of Cos and WASM stuff will have had to look in Cos and WASM's code base and the VM and all that sort of stuff. And it's really, really hard when people haven't put comments to understand. So very recently I was doing a bit of stuff. I was way too burnt out to be doing this for reference, and I had to stop, and I'm going to have to take some time off, and I'll come back to it when I come back. But I was trying to help out with some of the Cosmos SDK stuff, which involved basically looking at the existing implementations of Merkle trees for storage in Rust-based versions of the SDK, be that Basecoin or be that Augur, which is what's under Nomic. And Nomic and Augur is really cool. And like from 10,000 feet, understand it. 5,000 feet, understand it. 1,000 feet, understand it. Actual implementation, there are just loads of things where you're just like, I don't immediately see where this is used. I have to scroll through the code base to find where it's used. And then so you make a note on your pad and you're like, okay, I think this raw iterator is used for direct access to RocksDB, but I don't see why it's needed because it's wrapped elsewhere. But you just write it down and you move on and you go back to the thing you were looking at. But you've just had to unwind all that context to get back to where you were. And then you're like, okay, so that's not the thing I was looking for. So what does this other thing do? And it was interesting because without, like, you can see how something works and you can come up with a hypothesis, but being definitively certain that that's what it does that's another jump again. And so I sent Matt Bell quite a few pretty dumb questions where I was just like, look, why is this bit not exposed, or why is this bit over here exposed, whatever. And it was probably very annoying for him, but it was really interesting because I think it reminded me again of, like, as an engineer, how much you take for granted when you've written a piece of code that something is obvious. And from that experience, I was just like, oh my God, like, I need to remember this feeling for the next time I decide whether to write a proper code comment or not, because this is really, really interesting. Because I would imagine to Matt, who presumably spent a good period of time thinking about that code, writing it, those bits that I've just mentioned were probably super obvious what they did, you know? Especially with Rust, the compiler shouts at you if you do anything wrong anyway. So, like, you can get the code to that's the weird thing about Rust. Sometimes you get the code to compile, but you don't fully understand what the difference was between your version that wasn't 100% working and then.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if we go back to the Prop 16 thing, even with you doing that, it was still, in a very vague sense, like if you squint a little bit, it was still exploited, right? The wrong address was used to send the coins to. So even with all that effort put in, something still went wrong. And that really goes to show, like, the impossibility of doing an effective, impossibility is a bit strong, but
for potential people who will hire Envoy or Needlecast to do consultancy work, I would just like to state for the record that we did not work on the code. That, but yes.
Yeah. The point stands. Something still went wrong, even though every single line had a comment with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I also, for liability's sake, the contract was audited, but am I certain there's no vulnerabilities in that? No. So it's kind of useless me going like, oh well, the bit of code that showed to have a problem was elsewhere. It's like, well, how do you know, really, in the grand scheme of things? You only know when you've been owned, don't you, really? So we had a bunch more comments, and I've kind of derailed it by talking about code comments and fucking auditing there. So yeah, there's some. I mean, I think we generally speaking are on the boat that USK should probably be open source. That's kind of my feeling. Like, I don't think everything needs to be open source as part of a, HAL isn't open source. I know that project isn't even launched yet, but it's not going to be. There are pieces that will be open source. There are pieces that won't be open source. Is probably how that will happen, because we just know there are projects that are just going to take the code who already have millions of dollars in the bank and VCs, and we're bootstrapped. So why would we give people who already have a competitive and commercial advantage an opportunity to just take the code and run with it? That's, like, dumb. So I do understand Kuji's point of view. They must be looking around and seeing some very big competitors, but USK should probably be open sourced. Yeah, so there's some questions. So interoperability. So Ben Davis says, I guess interoperability means contagion is a risk, even if you don't invest in the chain. That's really interesting because we saw that a little bit. We saw the risk of that with UST and Terra, but it was sort of contained. We did talk about this a little bit with mesh security last week as well, though, that I think the risk of that is probably going to increase in the interchain. I don't know what you two think.
I mean, I think that statement's fine. I think it's valid. I'll buy that.
So Sporthies also said, I think so much of blockchain culture is built around coders law, but with closed source contracts, you are following law you can't even read. Very fair point. It's probably, it is a bit of a cultural relic of, or artifact or corollary of that.
I would say that's culture to date. Like in blockchain, we have to change our thinking over time, because if it stays the same and we just shit on anyone who tries to do anything different, you're just going to scare people away. So, you can't just have a monoculture of this one thing in an industry. You have to allow people to do their own thing and let the free market decide what they want to do with that. So just because to date, blockchain has been about a thing, I don't think that necessarily in the future it needs to be all that thing.
And I think to your point, I think Cosmos is its own microcosm within that sphere of Coda's law. We've proven that we kind of don't follow that with Prop 16. We were like, code says this, but we're going to undo that. And more recently, there have been multiple double signs lately, and they've been reverted. On Secret, who was it? Chain of Secrets double signed. That was kind of, that one I give a pass for undoing the double sign, because it was Secret Labs that had them do it. And anyway, and then there was another one, I think in Chihuahua, that there was a double sign, and then they reverted that one. And now I think for Stride, for Everstake, they double signed. But now there's a strong conversation happening about maybe they should, on the next upgrade, undo that double sign as well. So that's another example where we're just kind of absconding with the Coda's law thing when they did double sign. This did happen. They did get penalized.
So I think
especially because they fucking double signed on two chains as well. It's literally,
we need to confirm
fucking double signed. You should be off that chain. You have been tombstone. The intention of the fucking code is clear. If we're not going to do tombstoning, do an upgrade where you fucking change your genesis. You change the fucking sign penalty to 0. Yeah. Just do that. It's possible to turn that shit off.
I was going to say, change the code so you don't get tombstoned. Just fucking let people.
Just fucking get rid of that.
Well, I think that's what Akash did. There were 2 double signs on this last upgrade, and nothing happened. I think they have it disabled. So there are chains that have double signing turned off, so we know it's okay. So just follow that lead. So
what you're saying is you can try and double spend on Akash and it'll be fine.
I guess so, yeah. Because there were 2 validators that double signed on the last upgrade.
So we could take the open source Akash code, modify the binary so it's always just trying to double spend, and see what happens, basically.
I suppose, yeah. I'm not gonna.
This is how Needlecast finally double sign. It's okay, I have to go on Twitter and be okay, yes, we did double sign, but in fairness, we were trying to economically attack a network with the single worst kind of validator behavior that was possible, just because we were kind of curious. That's not bad, is it?
Profitable.
Yeah, it's okay, guys. We didn't double sign because of incompetence like all those other guys. We did it because we were actually being malicious, which is fine.
And don't you worry, I'm putting up a signaling proposal to be undouble signed here soon.
Yeah, well, you can just go it's kind of like a grey hat situation. We'll return the funds, but hey, also maybe pay us for that audit we just did.
Look, I don't really like the restoring of the double signees. It seems to me that plenty of other people managed to not double sign. So, I don't think there's a good enough reason to say we're going to restore you in an upgrade. I think.
Yeah, I agree for sure. The only exception I have is for Secret, just because it was the developers that were hey, we're going to give you this testing binary. This will most likely cause you a double sign, but if you do, then we'll undo it. That's the only exception I'm willing to give.
Also, that's what test nets are for.
True.
But yeah, I mean, like, most people do their double signing in upgrades, and there are things you can do to give you the optimum chance to not double sign. So, other people are doing it. I don't see why they give dispensation to people who aren't going to the additional effort and cost to make sure that they don't. And then people who are, like, in my opinion, it's a competence thing if you double sign, because there is no reason why that should happen, especially with the explanations I've seen on Twitter. It seems like they exactly do the thing that makes you double sign. And if that's their systems and their process that are making them do that, they shouldn't have that system or process, and they should have fleshed that out in a test net. They should get to a point where they're double signing on a main net. So for people to go, oh, that's okay, you've done a post-mortem and you've, identified your issue, good on you. I think that's not, good enough.
Yeah, and part of the conversation, I agree with you, first of all. Second, part of the conversation is around whether, like, what the intent of double signing is. A lot of people are under the impression that double signing is to protect against malicious actors specifically, and I don't know if that's true. It sounds likely to be true. But that's where the argument comes from. Well, they obviously weren't malicious, so why would we punish them? They just made a mistake. Well, because you should.
Because making mistakes is also malicious potentially.
Yeah, like,
and you're also taking people at face value. Like, Everstake make a shitload of cash, I assume. So you're going like, well, they can't be malicious because they want to continue making money. It's just like, oh yeah, well, when has an organization that makes loads of money ever been malicious or worked against the interests of a sovereign group of individuals or a community? I can't ever think in all of my reading on various subjects of a situation in which that happened.
Or like the last couple of weeks with FTX, maybe. Well, and the same conversation is actually happening there. They're saying that it's not fraud because, like, they weren't acting maliciously. It was just pure incompetence. And I just,
that's and it's a calculated defense strategy in these kind of cases because it works. It's really, really hard to prove the fine line between idiots and basically negligence and criminal intent. But the whole point of having like a really high bar dramatic slash is to just be like, sorry, but this is it's either a low trust environment or it's not. Back to the thing we were talking about with tokens and projects. Like, if we're going to act like it's a low trust environment, you got to enforce the rules. Like,
yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a great point, right? We're all doing this because we're talking high value, low trust. That's what blockchain solves. That is what blockchain solves. And if we're trying to break the trust aspect of it, then what are we doing?
Also, like, the thing I always bang on about, and I banged on about until it's blue in the face about with Prop 16, is like, this FTX thing is this is now, regulation is happening. It's going to happen in a big fucking way now. Well done, everybody. You fucked it. Everyone at FTX, that is. They fucked it. And the best thing is, those fuckers were regulated in the first place, and they fucking played fast and loose with customers' fiat currency effectively. It's not even all the rest of the other shit, all the DeFi degeneracy, all the Ponzi shit. The thing that we got fucked by was the fiat on-ramp, which is absolutely deliciously fucked. But like, the thing that drives me crazy is that every time you recover a chain because of validator double signs, you are just showing regulators you can do it. You are just showing that a chain is not decentralized. This was the thing with the whole modifying a whale's wallet. The second you do that, proof of stake is compromised. And proof of stake in the Cosmos right now is so compromised that, like, I mean, as a business, we are actively in a position now where I suspect that within the next 2 years, the legislation will change in the UK such that being on a Cosmos chain is not a good idea, because I think the regulator is going to take the position that it is not immutable. I think that's actually what they're going to say. They're going to say, look, no, these are all run by foundations, which are companies, and it's up to you to have a non-criminal or a legally tenable relationship with that foundation, right? And that's going to put regulatory pressure on us, because if they're in the fucking Caymans, like a lot of these foundations are, then you are the one that tends, well, your company anyway, is the one that tends to be held, you're in a jurisdiction where you can be held liable. And I don't know, whatever. It's a fucking bugbear of mine, that anyway. But we've still got a bunch of comments, so I want to try and get through.
Yeah. Go ahead.
More. How is it that we've got like 5 viewers that everybody is commenting? So Sporty had another comment saying permission closed source Cosmos contracts makes the gov prop to upload it seem like a farce. Yeah, that's kind of hard to
Ooh, that's a great point.
Deny. That's a really good point. Thoughts on Stargaze names? I think Null must have replied to that. I don't think that they're not live yet. But yeah, it's I think conceptually similar to the DENS name service in that they're NFTs, but these are Stargaze NFTs. A lot more of the work is on the auction mechanic and that sort of stuff. So the big difference between that and DENS is that if you sell or you have your name recycled every year, it's kind of like having an email with a custom domain. If somebody can buy your email off you next year because you forget to renew it, then you get owned, right? And that's like a bit of a problem for any downstream services that want to use a name service, is that if the names are being constantly recycled, it's very hard to actually build verification on top of them. That's I'd say the major difference. Other than that, they're both NFTs under the hood, which again makes sense with Stargaze, right?
I want to chime in just a little bit there with the NFTs. I find it really interesting that so many of these decentralized name services still have like subscription models of every year you need to renew it. That seems very contrary to what it should be. And I appreciate that DENS does not do that.
Yeah, that's was kind of the idea from the start. And I should say, actually, I actually managed to get some code written today. And the thing that I was writing code for is version 2 of DENS, which is essentially the conversion to being or the beginning of the work for it to become a proper DID provider, where it has claims attached to it that are verifiable proofs, i.e. they've got a public key with them. So the first version of this was just having a key-based style PGP key, but that's basically evolving to actually be properly co-located keys. So that should be cool when it happens, and that will make it pretty different. Somebody asked a question about IBC domains. I haven't seen the source. Ironically, I've seen the UI for IBC domains, but I don't get how it's different to DENS. I don't get how it's different from Stargaze names. It looks the same to me. Having a meta name that's not the Beck32 is not, that doesn't mean anything. That's just metadata. So you can constitute it however you like. DENS just does that's human readable, but as long as it's globally unique, it doesn't really matter. Sporty says, I might be missing something, but can't the contract IP be protected by strict licensing for usage while still keeping the code open source? Yes, but only if you trust all the people around you to not infringe the license, which you can't in this space. There are too many anons. Stargaze, most of their code is open source, but it's not open license, and that's true of quite a bit of Confio's code as well, for reference. So yeah, that's interesting. And any... Okay, we're nearly at the end of the comments. FTX help. So Ben Davis says, FTX help my no coiner colleagues understand why blockchain self-custody is a good idea. I think that's a really good point, and that might end up being one of the positive corollaries of this whole fiasco, right? Is that people might understand that well, I don't think the regulators are going to understand and the newspapers aren't going to understand, but the hack happened at the most centralized point of the whole ecosystem, and that feels like the takeaway to me.
Unfortunately, for people on the outside looking in, the understanding of sex, DEX, self-custody, custodial stuff doesn't mean anything to them. They're just words that go over their head while they're reading an article. All this has done is lost trust in crypto, and it'll take a long time to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would say that even most of us don't fully understand the magnitude of what self-custody is. I mean, if you just say that, for example, that your mnemonics actually, like, you never actually own your coins. They're like, your mnemonics don't unlock your coins. You just kind of get like a magnifying glass into your wallet and control it through that. That's really what's really happening. You don't actually have any ownership. It's a weird kind of meta discussion. But anyway, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, to my point is that to like 90% of the population who don't know about self-custody tokens, all they know about is what's in the news, and that is that, you know, FTX was hacked or whatever, and now all of crypto is fucked because of it. That's all they see, and that just loses trust in crypto, and that's, you know, hard to get back when it's taken so long to get this much trust in the first place.